With the 2026 draft class out of the way, we can start talking about this important Vikings class. There's a lot of players in here who could easily become solid pieces within our defense for the next 5 to 10 years, or we could see this draft class be a representation of how this team downfalls on defense. Overall, it's a pretty exciting class, but it could easily turn into one of the most infamous classes we've had, especially coming off the fact we just got rid of general manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. And overall, this is an important draft to get right, and the front office certainly chose to swing hard. Popping off this draft class, we have at pick 18, Caleb Banks, the defensive lineman from Florida. This is the quintessential big swing pick, short of the Rams pick and Ty Simpson, probably the biggest swing of the first round. This is a guy who was rated 50s, 40s, low 30s at the best. And that's strictly because of his injury history. Talent-wise, this is a guy who, when he was on the field, played at an exceptional level and changed the complexion of the game from the defensive line. This could either turn into like a huge increase in value, and this is one of the best value picks in the draft. A guy who was injured but comes in with all this talent, and he builds off of it, and he creates a great impact on this defensive line that we just seen lost Javon Hargrave, Jonathan Grenard through trade, and Jonathan Allen. This is a player more to replace that Jonathan Allen role, where we're talking the non-nose defensive lineman on the field that we utilize. Generally, our defense runs more linebackers, 4, and our nickel packages generally only have 2 dedicated down linemen. Caleb Banks fills in that sort of 3-tech role, and this is a guy who is that versatile Brian Flores type of guy. This is the type of guy who can come in, make a huge impact on this defense, and anchor down this defensive line that, while not terrible, has certainly seen a huge downgrade. And we haven't had the interior defensive linemen since Kevin and Pat Williams all the way back in the early 2010s, late 2000s. This is a huge impact level guy. If he can produce on the field, if he can make that transition into the league, which as far as the tape shows, he has that ability, but it's just purely dedicated on if this injury history is going to stick and if he develops injuries that are going to affect how he plays and slows him down. If those don't happen, this is the type of guy that makes it worthwhile to not pick up the solid pick. Everybody had, even I had Dylan Thieneman at this pick. The quality safety who now went to the Bears, which makes this pick all the more important for the front office to have gotten right, because not only do we have a huge swing here, we're swinging at the fact that Dylan Thieneman isn't going to be as good as this guy. We're saying that we're okay with the Bears, our own division rival, who just won the NFC North after a long time away from it. This is a huge move. And if it doesn't hit, our front office is going to look back at this pick and it's going to be like a Lewis sign level situation where we are strongly regretting it. Overall, this is the type of guy who can completely change the outlook of a game by himself. If he lives up to his potential, this is the best pick we've made since Justin Jefferson. If he doesn't, this is the worst pick we've made since like Lewis sign. And there's little in between, because this guy has all the pieces to be one of the best players at his position. But he also has the injury history that this swing could turn really bad for the Vikings, and it wouldn't be the first time we've seen that happen. But overall, if the Vikings have faith in this player being better than Dylan Thieneman, and he is certainly a player that fits Brian Flores' scheme, and this is almost certainly a pick that Brian Flores had a lot to do with, because it is pretty easy to say that it was either Thieneman or Banks at this pick. If they have the faith in this guy, it's pretty easy to have faith in this guy as well. You know, this upcoming year, these next 2 or 3 years will be a huge show of how our defense is going to be run. But this pick will make or break how our team looks in the next few years. Following that pick in the second round, the Vikings picked up at pick 51, Jake Golday, the linebacker from Cincinnati. This is a tall defensive end guy who got transitioned into a linebacker role recently. He is fresh coming off the line of scrimmage, and it shows in his game. But outside of that, he has this versatility. He is a 6'4" guy, you know, tall linebacker who has defensive end experience, which this team needs since trading Jonathan Gerhardt. With Jonathan Gerhardt being gone, it fills into Dallas Turner, Andrew Van Ginkel, and now Jake Golday. And that extra depth piece that Dallas Turner was just playing will be a huge part of how our linebackers, specifically the outside edge rushers, will look like throughout the next 2-3 years. He has pretty big shoes to fill. Our edge rushers between Gerhardt, Gink, and Dallas Turner all were really exceptional players. Gerhardt, one of the premier edge rushers in the league. Ginkel, a huge specialist on the line of scrimmage. Every single week you'll see him catch a screen pass for a pick six, it feels like. And then Dallas Turner, the first round pick who came after JJ McCarthy, another exceptional player from Alabama. This is the guy who has to fill in as that third edge rusher, potentially could move down to the edge, be an edge rusher on third down. Obviously later on down this draft, we pick up Dominique Orange next, and he's more of a 1 to 2 down guy. And Jake Golday can play more on that type of role, but he's still a guy who, given NFL coaching and given time, he has the ability to come off the ball, and he's tall and he's versatile, and he can play all the positions that Brian Flores wants. This is the type of guy who has the versatility needed to be on this hyper-aggressive Brian Flores defense, and he can do it well, so long as he develops. That transition from defensive end to off-ball linebacker recently is the reason why he was picked as late as he was, you know, being a 50s pick, but he has the ability to change the complexion of how their defensive fronts operate. And he has the ability to be a really interesting player for this defense to utilize over the next few years. And this is a type of guy who could be an heir apparent to one of the edge rushers, given a calorie sap in situation, or an injury situation, or a disgruntled player situation. This will be the guy to step in and fill that role. And he could do it exceptionally. He has all the components. It's just a matter of getting him to that point. And with NFL coaching and the ability to work in a fantastic Brian Flores defense, he has all the resources he will ever need to get to that point where he is a fantastic producer in the league. Following that, we have at pick 82 in the third round, Dominique Orange, otherwise known as Big Citrus. This is a nose guy. This is the type of guy we're going to need to fill in Javon Hargrave's role in our defense. That sort of Harrison Phillips role that we had before recent times in our recent defense. This is a guy who, the reason why he's so far down is because he can only play the run. He is a fantastic run stopper. He, first down, second down, run stopper, can play that role effectively. He is the type of guy you can anchor your interior defensive line around, and you're not going to be upset. He isn't the premier guy at his position. You don't pick premier guys at 82, but he has the potential to be a first down, second down rotation guy, which if you can get a fantastic rotation guy in your third round, you're doing pretty good. Dominique Orange can fill in, so that leaves our interior defensive linemen with Caleb Banks, Dominique Orange, and of course Jalen Redmond. Those three guys, we can work with that with our defense. Our defense is, if these guys hit, and they absolutely hit the ground running, This is a defensive line that could do a lot in this league. We're already a hyper aggressive defense. We already have a lot of pressure. Now, if our interior defensive line starts producing, and if the front office hits on these picks that we have with Dominique Orange and Caleb Banks, the complete complexion of our run game, our run defense, I should say, and overall our ability on the interior will gain so much more support. And that allows for our DBs to feel more secure. It allows us to cut back on the blitzing. Not that we would really do that, but it means that the blitzes we're doing are more for the fun of it. Instead, recently, our interior defensive line just isn't stellar. It's always just been at best solid to good. And having the potential in this draft to have completely changed that complexion is an interesting prospect. Is there a chance that these players don't hit and we just stay solid? Absolutely. That's any draft. We don't have the privilege of understanding the future. But these are two players, Caleb Banks and Dominique Orange, who can completely revamp our interior defensive line. And in 2-3 years, when they have more experience, this could be a really fun interior defensive lineman tandem, with Dominique Orange being the nose and Caleb Banks being the flexed out interior defensive lineman if Brian Flores stays, which after extensions, obviously we're going to hope for that. But this is for pick 82, this could be a game-changing guy on first and second down. First and second down being important to getting it to third. Second down is probably the most important down, and Dominique Orange has the ability to change the game on that down, specifically in the run game. So 2nd and 5, they try to call a run. Dominique Orange is the type of guy who can keep it behind the line of scrimmage or at the line of scrimmage, and we can work from that point. Our defense is a solid defense once it comes to third and medium and third and long, where we can either A, pressure everything, or B, sit back, quarters, man, 2 deep, cover 5, do whatever we need to do and just blanket everything. And we have that flexibility, and we have the people, and we have the versatility to do that out of any front we want. Dominique Orange is the type of guy that can anchor down that type of defense, which makes him a really stellar pick at 82 and is an exciting player to watch, if not for anything else than just all of his nicknames. Following the big citrus pick, we have the first offensive pick we get in this draft, which is Caleb Tiernan, an offensive lineman from Northwestern. This is going to be a 6th lineman type of guy. We're not picking a lot of starters in the 3rd round. This is the 6th lineman up. He has a lot of experience playing at the college level, so he can kind of fill in as a younger depth piece and still have a little bit more experience than, say, a 21-year-old rookie or a 20-year-old rookie. He played offensive tackle a lot in the league. He'll probably be kicked on the inside more, but he still has a little bit of that experience, so we can kind of move him around on our offensive line and have a little bit of flexibility if he can make the transition up into the NFL. And overall, this is a solid backup option for our offensive line, which previous years had a lot of issues. Recently, it started to get better, and as long as the offensive line stays healthy, we are a pretty solid unit now. Caleb Tiernan has the ability to help protect that depth piece, protect the injuries. We've seen Bredeson and O'Neal get hurt a lot, as well as some of our interior guys at times. And having the ability to protect our offensive line's integrity throughout all the injury concerns we get is a huge boost for our offense's productivity, especially as we get later on into the season. We don't expect to ever get through a season without injuries. We can expect an injury to pretty much every position, whether it's your wide receiver 3 or your right guard or anyone really. At any point, we can lose anyone. We can even lose our quarterback, like we've seen with JJ McCarthy, Carson Wentz, having Max Brosmer have to fill in at times. having the ability to protect ourselves from injuries throughout the long 17-week season is huge. And Caleb Tiernan helps us protect from injuries. He also has the ability to have some starter upside. This is the type of guy who maybe in 3 years, we give a shot to start. Maybe in 2 years, we give him a shot to start. It all depends on how he develops coming into the league. He already has a good amount of experience, so that league transition should be easier. And if he can play up to that role, he can do a solid job coming out of pick 97. The pick after Caleb Tiernan, we get Jakobe Thomas at pick 98. This is a safety from Miami. This is the guy who is going to replace the old third safety role. Traditionally, last year we saw it with Theo Jackson, where the next guy up, if Harrison Smith went down or when he was out, was Theo Jackson would come in, replace him. So it was Josh Metellus and Theo Jackson. Jakobe Thomas fills in that third role. And this is also an important guy, specifically if Harrison Smith leaves. If Harrison Smith stays, we'll obviously have Josh Metellus playing everywhere else. Harrison Smith, also a guy who can come up into the box at times. And of course, Theo Jackson. This is the third safety in the defense where we don't get Harrison Smith coming back. If Harrison Smith does come back, Jakobe Thomas gets a lot of veteran experience to play off of, and that could also be very beneficial. This is a safety pick, really, and a pretty good one at that. There is a world where Theo Jackson maybe burns out or he moves away, and Jakobe Thomas can fill in. And if Harrison Smith leaves, now we're stuck with Josh Metellus and who? Jakobe Thomas at a reasonable 98 can come in and fill in that role. He has a strong line of scrimmage presence. He isn't that good in coverage. He is kind of like a Harrison Smith type of guy where, he is a strong presence. And we've seen recently Harrison Smith will come up on that line of scrimmage, come in and blitz, get a couple sacks in the season. Jakobe Thomas has that same type of upside without nearly as much of the coverage ability, but we're also comparing him to a easy Hall of Famer. And the fact that he gets to bounce off of Harrison Smith potentially, even if Harrison Smith doesn't come back to play, he could still bounce off some stuff with Harrison Smith. And of course, Josh Metellus, who's also played pretty much everywhere. And he has the resources to become a solid guy in this league. Coming off of pick 98, this is not an unheard of place to get a high quality guy in the third round. It's a day 2 pick. We've seen guys come from everywhere, especially on this Vikings team. We're one of the best people, one of the best teams at picking up guys, especially in the undrafted scene. We probably had one of the best, if not the best, undrafted scene in the past 2 or 3 years. And Jakobe Thomas has the ability to be a potential high-level guy. He obviously has championship experience just this past year, losing in the national championship. I'm a personal believer in championship experience. I believe if you've been a part of a team who knows how to win, you can translate a little bit of that every single week. You know what it takes to win it all. You know what it takes to get there. That's something that this Vikings team doesn't have. A lot of the guys who were part of the 2017 team, they're old. All of the guys who had playoff experience, we need to bring more in because we don't have it at our field. All of the guys who make it to championships just leave. They did it after they come here. Sam Darnold being the big example of that. But we don't have championship experience in the locker room. And having just guys who come in who have done it. We'll see it in the next pick with Max Bredeson, who has made it to a national championship himself with JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy also being an example of that. Having guys who know how to make it to championships is a solid part of the game. Players who lose and keep losing, they don't remember how to win. Players who win know how to win. This is just a strong third round pick. There's not much else better we could have gotten at this position in turn for the value and the positional ranking. So if we weren't going to pick up Tiernan, and we did not end up with Emmanuel from Toledo, like, we don't have those picks, we don't mind taking a flyer on a later round guy who has that experience and has the same role player type of guy as like Harrison Smith. So when Harrison Smith does leave, we have enough safety depth with enough back and forth, with enough understanding of our defense, who can play in that role. So Jakobe Thomas is a fantastic pick for pick 98. To round out this draft class, we have our day 3 picks. The first pick in this group at 159, we have Max Bredeson, the fullback from Michigan. This is very clearly a replacement to Ham retiring. He was a big leader presence. That'll be a huge part of heading into next season, a component that needs to be taken into consideration. There is a loss in leadership with CJ Ham leaving. Max Bredeson will fill in his role. I'm personally interested by the fact that we picked up a new fullback. I felt like there was a opportunity to grab maybe another tight end or another receiver or another running back, and instead we picked up a new fullback. This is a goal line type of guy. If you remember, whenever we were rolling with Ham in this Kevin O'Connell offense, not a lot of fullback, but it does help a lot within the power run game. Our running backs are never too power run type of guy, or a too elusive type of guy, or just a too fast type of guy. Our run game has always been kind of just a mix of different components, just generally all around good guys at what they do. With Aaron Jones getting older, this helps in that power run game and will really help on goal line situations where it's a need to have 1 or 2 yards. This is the type of guy who will get you there. He is a strong blocker. There's a reason why he's a fullback that went at this position. Just a good, solid pickup for the offense. Leading on from there, we have 163, where we have Charles Demmings, the cornerback from SFA. This is a depth corner pickup. And this is just a guy who is really solid in coverage, a good 4th corner dime type of guy. He has nickel 3rd cornerback upside, I should say. Not really good when it comes to tackling and anything in relation to like the run game, but his ability in coverage was more than enough to get him drafted. And he's just a good, 3rd down, 3rd and 11. We need 4 corners out there because we're just going to play it back, play it safe. Charles Demmings is the type of guy we can put on the field for that situation, which is a good pickup in the 5th round. After that, we enter the 6th round at 198. We have Claireborne, the running back from Wake Forest. This is a speed back, not an elusive guy strictly, or a power back, especially not. This is a 5'8", fast running back. Not a common attribute when it comes to the Vikings running back room, but it'll be a really nice change of pace to have a faster guy, at least as an option, especially on 2nd and long, 3rd and passing situation, where it could help to have a little bit more speed, or playing against teams that we can't really power through, but we can outrun. That'll be a good time for Claireborne to get a couple reps in. Just an overall solid backup player and a nice change of pace type of guy. And to round out this draft class, we have our 7th rounder at 235, Gavin Gerhardt, center from Cincinnati. This is just a depth option for center. He has a strong amount of experience playing in Cincinnati, played there, started for a few years. Just a solid player, just pretty consistent. He isn't you don't expect a guy who's gonna, have a bunch of playing time or even make the field when you get in your 7th-round picks. But this is a guy who can be a nice depth piece, especially at center, which is a position where we have a solid amount of injuries that happen there over the past few years, and we've always had issues at center here and there. And so it'll just be a nice depth piece to include, gets the offensive line a little bit younger, and overall just helps the offense's ability against injury. As we talked about with Caleb Tiernan earlier on, helps us protect against injuries. Overall, this is a really big swing type of draft class. This isn't the type of draft class that we're like, this is really, really good off rip. And this is certainly not the type of draft class where we could just say that it's going to be bad. It's one that, more than a lot of others, will take a lot of time to really see play out. Caleb Banks being the headliner, choosing him over Dylan Thieneman will be a huge storyline heading into this year, next year, and 3 years out. Then that will really shape up how well this draft actually played out. But overall, this is a strong defensive draft. Helps our defense get young and replace a lot of important players that we have lost. And we're going to really start seeing the Brian Flores effect take in now that we've seen the first initial group of his guys start to go away. And we're starting to see the sort of second group, in the past few years that are really coming through and establishing themselves. And this is a solid group to start with. We're looking to hopefully have addressed the interior defensive line with this draft. We're hoping to have addressed that sort of edge position, keeping that solid, help with our offensive line situation, make sure that's solid for the next 2 years. And this is a class that's just overall solid. If there was a letter graded B around a B, it's not like exceptional, and you can't say that a draft class is exceptional until it gets on the field. But this has, like top 10 draft class potential. But right now it's just kind of middle of the road, which is perfectly okay for the Vikings right now. It's a team that has a lot of the pieces. It just honestly needed a quarterback. We're talking about a team that had JJ McCarthy, Carson Wentz, and Max Brosmer combine and get 9 wins, including against really good teams like the Lions, like the Bears in week 1. Like, it's a solid team. This is a team with championship potential. It just didn't have the quarterback play to facilitate that. But with these players, we can help supplement that. And if Kyler Murray can play, and I just saw that Jordan Addison exercised the 5th year on that player. So this is a team that has not much room to get better in relation to everywhere else besides like quarterback. But this helps really supplement and keep our positions away from regressing, because that's the ultimate thing when you have this type of roster and you're lacking the quarterback, is you cannot regress. This is a draft class that helps prevent that regression. Even if Caleb Banks isn't that great, he can play up to the role or the level of production that, Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave were putting out on the field on a week-to-week basis. Like, we have the ability to keep up, and that's important. Our defense absolutely lights out the past few years with Brian Flores. Lights out. That's all we could ever want. Offensively, we just need the quarterback. This helps facilitate that, So overall, not a bad draft class at all. And it should get fans really, really excited for not just this upcoming year, but the next 2 or 3 years, because this is the type of draft class where Brian Flores stays, we're going to have a top 7, top 5 defense in the league.